Jackson Reed's head pounded as he slowly regained consciousness. His eyelids felt like they were weighted down with lead as he fought to open them. The air smelled oddly sterile with a metallic tang. This definitely wasn't his ship. His eyes flew open, adrenaline spiking through his veins as harsh white light assaulted his vision. Blinking rapidly to clear the blur, he realized he was staring at a ceiling that looked like it belonged to a high-tech toaster. Sleek, silvery metal with pulsing blue lights. What in the galaxy is going on? Jackson muttered, his voice gravelly. He attempted to sit up, but his limbs felt like they were made of jelly, muscles protesting every move. Gritting his teeth, he forced himself upright, ignoring the wave of dizziness that followed. The room was tiny and Spartan, with a single door opposite him, seamlessly integrated into the wall. No windows, no familiar equipment, nothing human. Jackson's heart raced as the reality of his situation hit him. He was on an alien ship. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a tall, imposing figure. Jackson's jaw dropped. She was undeniably alien, yet oddly mesmerizing. Her skin was a pale lavender, smooth and almost glowing, with intricate silver markings swirling across her face and arms. Her eyes were large, almond-shaped, and a striking violet that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. Her long silver hair was pulled back in a severe braid that highlighted her sharp cheekbones and full lips. But it was her commanding presence that truly caught his attention. She radiated authority, her posture as rigid as a statue. "You're awake," she said, her voice low and melodious despite its clipped tone. "I am Captain Angela of the Seltor ship, the Stellar Tempest. You are Jackson Reed, former pilot of the Earth-ship Voyager." Jackson's mind reeled. How did she know his name? What happened to his ship? He opened his mouth to ask, but Angela continued. "Your vessel crashed on the planet Glarus during an incursion into our territory. I decided to rescue you before the planet's toxic atmosphere could do you in. According to Seltor law, by saving your life, you now belong to me." Jackson stared at her, slack-jawed. "I what? Belong to you?" "Lady, I don't know what kind of intergalactic roleplay you're into, but this is not a game." "Human," Angela interrupted sharply, "it is our way. By saving you, you owe me a life debt. Until that debt is repaid, you are effectively my property." Jackson's temper flared. He swung his legs over the side of the bed, ignoring the protesting ache in his muscles. "Listen here, Zira. I don't care what your alien laws say. I'm a free man, and I don't belong to anyone." He tried to stand, but his legs buckled. Angela moved with lightning speed, catching him before he hit the floor. Jackson found himself pressed against her, acutely aware of her alien strength and the faint, exotic scent that clung to her skin. "Your bravado is misplaced," Angela said, her breath warm against his ear. "You can barely stand. How do you expect to assert your freedom when you cannot even care for yourself?" Jackson pulled away, steadying himself against the bed. He glared at Angela, refusing to admit that she had a point. "I've been in tougher spots than this, sweetheart. I'll manage." A flicker of amusement, or was it irritation, crossed Angela's face before her stoic mask returned. "Your human stubbornness is noted. However, it changes nothing. You will remain aboard this vessel until I see fit otherwise. It would be in your best interest to cooperate." Jackson opened his mouth to argue further, but Angela held up a hand, silencing him. "Rest and regain your strength. We will speak more later." With that, she turned and strode out of the room, the door sliding shut behind her. Alone, Jackson slumped back onto the bed, his mind racing. Trapped on an alien ship, apparently owned by its captain, with no idea where he was or how to get home. "Well, Jackson," he muttered to himself, "you've really outdone yourself this time." Over the next few days, Jackson's strength gradually returned. He explored his small quarters, searching for any potential escape routes or means of communication, but the alien technology was way beyond his comprehension, and the door remained stubbornly locked. His only interactions were with the all-female medical staff, who were efficient and professional but seemed oddly fascinated by their human patient. Jackson caught them whispering and sneaking glances when they thought he wasn't looking. On the fourth day, the door opened once more to reveal Captain Angela. "You've recovered sufficiently," she said. "It's time you learn your place here. Follow me." Jackson bristled at her commanding tone but complied, eager to see more of the ship. As they walked through the sleek corridors, he couldn't help but marvel at the advanced technology around them. Holographic displays flickered to life as they passed, and alien crew members worked with practiced efficiency. "So, Captain," Jackson said, breaking the silence, "what exactly does being your property entail? Do I get a collar or maybe a name tag?" Angela's stride faltered for a moment, her eyes widening slightly before she regained her composure. "Your attempts at humor are unnecessary. You will assist where needed and obey orders. Nothing more." Jackson grinned, sensing he'd struck a nerve. "Oh, come on, don't tell me the mighty Seltor can't take a joke. Is humor outlawed in your culture too?" Angela stopped abruptly, turning to face him. Her violet eyes blazed with intensity. "Our ways may seem strange to you, human, but they have served us well for millennia. Do not mock what you do not understand." Jackson held up his hands in mock surrender. "Hey, no offense intended. I'm just trying to figure out where I stand here, or kneel, if that's more your thing." A muscle twitched in Angela's jaw, and for a moment, Jackson thought he'd pushed too far. But then he caught it, a tiny, barely there smile tugging at the corner of her mouth before she suppressed it. "Your irreverence is unexpected," Angela admitted. "Most species we encounter are too intimidated to speak so freely." Jackson shrugged. "What can I say? Humans are full of surprises. Speaking of which, any chance I could get some real food? Your medical goop is keeping me alive, but my taste buds are dying of boredom." Angela regarded him for a long moment, as if reassessing her initial judgment. "Very well. I'll have the galley prepare something more suited to your palate. But do not mistake this concession for weakness. You are still bound by our laws." As they continued their tour, Jackson's mind raced. He'd seen a crack in Angela's icy demeanor, however small. If he could keep chipping away at that facade, maybe he'd find a way to turn this situation to his advantage. The mess hall buzzed with activity as Jackson entered, flanked by Angela. Conversations hushed, and all eyes turned to the human in their midst. Jackson felt like a zoo exhibit but refused to show discomfort. Instead, he flashed his most charming grin and gave a little wave. "Ladies and gents, hope I'm not interrupting dinner and a show." A ripple of murmurs swept through the crowd. Angela's hand clamped down on Jackson's shoulder, her grip like iron. "You will not disrupt ship operations," she hissed in his ear. Jackson turned to her, eyebrows raised innocently. "Disrupt? I'm just being friendly. Isn't that what good property does?" Angela's eyes narrowed dangerously, but before she could respond, one of the crew approached. She was younger than most, with curious eyes. "Captain," she said, saluting, "is it true? Is this really a human male?" Jackson stepped forward, extending his hand. "Jackson Reed, at your service. And yes, 100% genuine human male. Want to check?" The young crew member's eyes widened, and her cheeks flushed a deeper shade of purple. Angela stepped between them. "That's enough, Ensign. Return to your duties." As the flustered ensign scurried away, Angela rounded on Jackson. "You will cease this shameless flirtation immediately." Jackson couldn't help but notice the way Angela's breath had quickened, the slight flush creeping up her neck. "Oh, come on, Captain. Don't tell me you're jealous. I thought I was just property after all." For a moment, something flickered in Angela's eyes, vulnerability quickly buried beneath her stern facade. "You're a disruption," she said, her voice low. "Perhaps it was a mistake to bring you here." Jackson's grin faded. He hadn't meant to genuinely upset her. "Look, I'm sorry. This is all just a lot to take in. I'm trying to cope the best way I know how." Angela studied him, her expression unreadable. Finally, she nodded. "I understand. But you must learn to control yourself. There are greater concerns than your comfort or amusement." As if on cue, a piercing alarm blared through the ship, red lights flashing and crew members springing into action. Angela's posture stiffened, all traces of their personal conflict forgotten. "Battle stations," she barked. "We're under attack." Jackson felt a surge of adrenaline. This was his chance to prove his worth. "Captain," he said, all humor gone from his voice, "let me help. I'm a damn good pilot, and I know combat maneuvers that might surprise your enemies." Angela hesitated for a split second before nodding curtly. "Very well. Follow me to the bridge. But if you so much as think about betraying us—" Jackson met her gaze steadily. "I may not like being owned, but I'm not about to side with whoever's shooting at us. You have my word." As they raced to the bridge, alarms blaring around them, Jackson couldn't help but feel a thrill of excitement. This was what he lived for, the rush of combat, the challenge of outmaneuvering an enemy. And if he played his cards right, it might just be his ticket to earning some real respect on this alien ship. The bridge of the Stellar Tempest was a marvel of alien technology. Holographic displays filled the air, showing the positions of enemy ships closing in fast. Seltor crew members worked their stations with practiced efficiency, calling out status reports in their musical language. Angela strode to the center of the bridge, her presence commanding instant attention. "Report," she barked. A tall Seltor with elaborate silver markings responded. "Captain, we've detected a squadron of Drari warships on an intercept course. They've already launched fighters." Jackson whistled low. "Drari. I've heard stories about those guys. Nasty customers." Angela shot him a sharp look. "You know of the Drari?" "Let's just say they've got a reputation, even in human space," Jackson replied grimly. "They're relentless and they fight dirty." Angela's eyes narrowed, reassessing Jackson once again. "Very well. What would you suggest?" Jackson stepped forward, studying the holographic display. "Your ship's faster, right? More maneuverable." Angela nodded. "Then we use that to our advantage. Instead of trying to outgun them, we outmaneuver them." He pointed to a nearby asteroid field. "We head their full speed, use the rocks for cover, pick off their fighters, then when their main ships follow us in, we can ambush them." Angela's eyes glimmered with approval. "It's risky, but it could work. Helm, set course for the asteroid field, maximum speed." The ship lurched as it changed direction, accelerating rapidly. Jackson gripped a nearby console to steady himself, adrenaline coursing through his veins. Drari fighters were closing in fast. "All gunners, prepare for close-quarters combat," Angela commanded. "Jackson, I hope your piloting skills match your strategy." Jackson flashed her a cocky grin. "Oh, they do. Mind if I take the helm for a moment?" Angela hesitated. Trusting a human, her property, with control of her ship in the middle of a battle was unprecedented, but there was something in Jackson's eyes, a confidence born of experience, that made her decision. "Do it," she ordered, "but I'll be watching your every move." Jackson slid into the pilot's seat, his hands hovering over the unfamiliar controls. He took a deep breath, letting his instincts take over. The ship responded to his touch, more sensitive and responsive than any human craft he'd ever flown. As they entered the asteroid field, Jackson's world narrowed to the dance of rock and starlight before him. He wove the massive ship through gaps that seemed impossibly small, always one step ahead of their pursuers. "Drari fighters entering weapons range," the tactical officer shouted. "Now's our chance," Jackson called out. "On my mark, cut engines and rotate 180 degrees. Gunners, be ready to fire the second we're facing them." Angela's eyes widened. "That maneuver at this speed?" "Trust me," Jackson interrupted, his voice steady. For a heartbeat, their eyes met. Then Angela nodded. "Do it now." Jackson's hands flew over the controls. The Stellar Tempest shuddered as its engines cut out, spinning through space. Jackson fought to control their rotation. Then, with a precision that drew gasps from the crew, they came to a stop, facing the oncoming Drari fighters. "Fire!" Angela commanded. A barrage of energy weapons lashed out, catching the enemy completely by surprise. Explosions erupted in the void as fighter after fighter disintegrated. Jackson didn't wait to celebrate. He fired up the engines, sending them deeper into the asteroid field. "Their main ships will be right behind us. We need to set up our ambush." Angela nodded, a fierce grin on her face. "You heard him. All hands, prepare for close-quarters combat." As they maneuvered into position, Jackson felt Angela's hand on his shoulder. He looked up, meeting her violet gaze. "Well done," she said softly. "Perhaps there's more to you than I first thought." Jackson winked. "Told you humans were full of surprises." Now let's show these Drari what happens when they mess with the Stellar Tempest. As the looming shapes of the Drari warships appeared on their sensors, Jackson couldn't help but grin. He was trapped on an alien ship owned by its captain, in the middle of a war he barely understood. But right now, with his hands on the controls and the thrill of battle singing in his veins, he felt more alive than he had in years. Whatever came next, Jackson Reed was ready to face it head-on. The Stellar Tempest glided through the inky blackness of space, its sleek form barely visible against the backdrop of distant stars. Inside, the ship hummed with renewed energy following their victory over the Drari. Jackson stood at the viewport in his newly assigned quarters, gazing out at the unfamiliar constellations. A chime at the door interrupted his reverie. "Enter," he called, turning to face his visitor. Captain Angela strode in, her posture as rigid as ever, but Jackson noticed a slight softening around her eyes, a lingering effect of their shared triumph in battle. "I trust your new accommodations are satisfactory?" she asked, her gaze sweeping the room. Jackson grinned. "Oh, it's definitely an upgrade from my previous cell. Though I have to say, the decor could use a woman's touch." He winked at her. "Care to help me redecorate, Captain?" Angela's brow furrowed. "I fail to see how my gender would impact interior design choices." "It's just an expression," Jackson chuckled. "Though I'd be happy to explain the finer points of human flirting if you're interested." A faint purple flush crept up Angela's neck. "That won't be necessary. I came to inform you that your performance in the recent battle has altered your status somewhat." Jackson raised an eyebrow. "Oh, am I being promoted from property to, say, cherished pet?" Angela's eyes narrowed. "Your attempts at humor continue to be perplexing. What I mean is that you've proven yourself to be a valuable asset. As such, you will be granted limited access to certain areas of the ship and allowed to assist in non-critical operations." "Well, well," Jackson said, taking a step closer to her, "sounds like someone's warming up to the idea of having a human around." Angela didn't back away, but Jackson noticed her breath catch slightly. "Do not misinterpret this gesture, Jackson Reed. You are still bound by Seltor law, and I am still your owner." Jackson's grin widened. Of course. Wouldn't dream of forgetting that, Captain. Though I must say, I've never had an owner quite as captivating as you." The Stellar Tempest drifted serenely through the asteroid field, the remnants of the Drari attack now only distant memories. The ship had sustained some minor damage, but the crew's efficiency had already set things to rights. Jackson Reed, now technically part of the crew but still very much under Captain Angela's watchful eye, had taken to exploring his new environment with cautious enthusiasm. He found himself in the mess hall again, this time with a slight improvement in the food. It was still an alien concoction, but it had a flavor profile more agreeable to his human palate. He was halfway through his meal when Angela walked in, her imposing presence immediately drawing the attention of the entire room. Jackson, ever the opportunist, decided to test the waters a little. "Captain Angela," Jackson called out, waving her over with a wide grin. "Care for a seat? I promise this stuff won't bite." Angela's eyes flickered with a mixture of irritation and curiosity. She approached the table, but stopped short, arms crossed. "I'm here to discuss our current situation, not to partake in your human dining experiences." Jackson shrugged, gesturing to the seat opposite him. "Suit yourself. Though I'd recommend trying a bite. Might surprise you." Angela's gaze hardened. "Our encounter with the Drari has raised several issues. Their attack was unexpected and suggests they are planning something larger. It is imperative that we understand their motives and anticipate their next move." Jackson nodded, setting aside his fork. "Yeah, I heard the crew talking about how the Drari are always up to something. Any idea what they're after?" Angela's expression softened slightly. "The Drari are known for their territorial expansion. They seek to control regions of space rich in resources or strategic value. Our proximity to the Glarus system, an area of significant mineral wealth, makes us a target." "Sounds like they're not just bullies," Jackson said thoughtfully. "They're looking to expand their empire." "Precisely," Angela confirmed. "And if they are willing to engage in open conflict with us, their plans must be quite advanced." Jackson leaned back, considering this. "So what's the game plan? You've got a brilliant mind. I'm sure you've got something up your sleeve." Angela's eyes narrowed. We need to gather more intelligence on the Drari's movements and intentions. For now, I have assigned you to assist in our reconnaissance operations. Jackson raised an eyebrow. Me? I'm flattered, really. But I've never done covert operations. More of a fly-by-the-seat-of-my-pants kind of guy. You will be provided with the necessary equipment and briefed on our procedures, Angela said, her tone brooking no argument. Your piloting skills and knowledge of human tactics make you a valuable asset in this situation. Jackson grinned. All right, Captain. When do we start? Immediately, Angela replied. Report to the briefing room in 15 minutes. We need to prepare for our first scouting mission. The briefing room was a sleek, high-tech space filled with holographic displays and a large, central table. Jackson arrived early, studying the various maps and schematics projected around the room. Angela entered shortly after, followed by a small team of Seltor officers. Jackson, this is Lieutenant Eric and Ensign Talon, Angela introduced, pointing to the officers. They will be assisting you in this mission. Eric was tall and lean, his silver markings more intricate than most. Talon, on the other hand, was younger and had a more casual demeanor, though he still exuded an air of competence. Pleasure to meet you both, Jackson said, extending his hand. I'm Jackson Reed. I'll be your human liaison for this operation. Eric shook his hand firmly, while Talon gave a polite nod. We'll be coordinating with you on the ground, Eric said. Our main objective is to locate and identify any Drari installations or movements in the Glarus system. Angela nodded. Jackson, you will be piloting a stealth shuttle. It's equipped with advanced cloaking technology and sensors. Your mission is to scout out potential Drari positions and gather any relevant information. Jackson's eyes lit up. Stealth shuttle, huh? That sounds like a lot of fun. What's the catch? Angela's expression was unreadable. The Glarus system is heavily monitored. If you are detected, the consequences could be dire. Maintain the utmost discretion. Jackson gave her a roguish grin. Got it. Stealth and subtlety. Two of my specialties. When do we leave? Prepare yourself, Angela said. We depart in 30 minutes. We need to move quickly to gain the upper hand. As Jackson prepared for the mission, he couldn't help but feel a rush of excitement. This was his chance to prove himself, not just as a pilot, but as a valuable member of the crew. And if things went well, he might even earn a bit of respect from Captain Angela. The stealth shuttle was sleek and angular, with a design that blended seamlessly with the surrounding space. Jackson marveled at the advanced controls as he settled into the pilot seat, adjusting the controls to fit his familiarity. Eric and Talon joined him, their faces serious as they reviewed the mission briefings. Angela's voice came through the comm system, giving final instructions. Remember, our primary goal is intelligence gathering. Avoid confrontation with the Drari at all costs. We need information, not heroics. Jackson acknowledged the order, taking a deep breath as he initiated the shuttle's launch sequence. The vessel smoothly detached from the Stellar Tempest, gliding silently into the vast expanse of space. As they approached the Glarus system, Jackson activated the shuttle's cloaking device, rendering them invisible to enemy sensors. The stars outside became a blur as they maneuvered through the asteroid belt that separated them from their target area. Lieutenant Eric, Ensign Talon, Jackson said, his voice focused. Any specific areas we should be looking at? Eric pulled up a holographic display showing various potential Drari bases. We've identified several possible locations based on previous reconnaissance. We'll need to investigate each one to determine their current status. Jackson nodded, expertly piloting the shuttle toward the first target. All right, let's get to work. The first base was hidden within an asteroid field, its location marked only by faint energy signatures. Jackson navigated the shuttle with precision, using the asteroid field for cover as they approached. Stealth systems holding steady, Talon reported. We're undetected so far. Jackson eased the shuttle into a low orbit around the base, his eyes scanning the sensors for any signs of activity. Looks like a standard Drari installation. No obvious signs of an active threat. Eric tapped a few commands on his console. We need to get closer to get detailed readings. Scan for any unusual energy patterns or ship movements. Jackson carefully maneuvered the shuttle closer to the base, his heart pounding with the thrill of the covert operation. The base appeared to be a standard facility, but the sensors picked up several energy fluctuations that seemed out of place. "This base is definitely up to something," Jackson said, frowning as he examined the data. "We've got multiple energy sources in the lower levels. They might be hiding something down there." Eric nodded. "We need to investigate further. Ensign Talon, prepare a drone for a closer inspection." Talon quickly deployed a small, agile drone from the shuttle, guiding it toward the base. The drone's feed was transmitted back to the shuttle's main display, revealing a network of tunnels and hidden compartments. "Looks like they've been busy," Talon said, his eyes widening as he observed the drone's findings. "We've got construction activities and some kind of large energy emitter." Jackson's eyes narrowed. That could be a major development. If they're building something new, it could be a game-changer. Eric's expression was grim. "We need to get this information back to the captain immediately. But we can't risk being detected." Jackson adjusted the shuttle's course, preparing for their exit. "I'll get us out of here without a trace. Hang on tight." The stealth shuttle smoothly retracted from its position, slipping through the asteroid field with practiced ease. As they made their way back to the Stellar Tempest, Jackson's mind raced with the implications of their findings. Upon their return, Captain Angela awaited them in the briefing room. She listened intently as Jackson and his team presented their findings, her eyes narrowing in concentration as they detailed the energy readings and construction activities. "This is troubling," Angela said finally, her voice calm but edged with concern. "The Drari are preparing something significant. We need to escalate our efforts to gather more intelligence and prepare for potential conflict." Jackson nodded. "We've got a lead. If they're building something new, it might give us an edge if we can find out more." Angela's gaze lingered on Jackson, a flicker of something, perhaps respect or acknowledgement, crossing her features. "You performed well today, Jackson Reed. Your skills and bravery are noted." Jackson's grin widened. "Thanks, Captain. I've got plenty more where that came from. Just keep the missions coming." Angela's expression softened slightly, though her demeanor remained authoritative. "We'll continue to rely on your expertise. But remember, Jackson, our safety depends on discretion and precision. Keep that in mind as we move forward." Jackson nodded, feeling a surge of pride. He had earned a place among the crew, not just as an outsider, but as a valued ally. And as he looked at Angela, he couldn't help but wonder what other surprises awaited him in this uncharted chapter of his life. The Stellar Tempest sailed onward through the stars, its crew united by a common purpose. For Jackson Reed, each day brought new challenges and opportunities, and he was ready to meet them head-on. With each mission, he was forging a new path, not just for himself, but for the future of the ship and its enigmatic captain. The Stellar Tempest drifted silently through the void, a speck in the vast sea of stars. Inside, the ship hummed with a quiet intensity as the crew prepared for their next move. Jackson Reed found himself growing accustomed to life aboard the vessel, and his role as an unofficial liaison was becoming increasingly complex. His previous mission had earned him a measure of respect from the crew, but it also made him a valuable target for curiosity. He was deep in conversation with Ensign Talon in the mess hall, discussing their recent findings when the chime at the door signaled a new arrival. Captain Angela strode in, her presence commanding instant attention. "Jackson," she said, her tone businesslike but not without a hint of approval. "We have a new task for you. The Drari's recent activity indicates a potential shift in their strategy. We need to further investigate the anomaly your team discovered." Jackson nodded, setting down his meal. "Understood, Captain. What's the new plan?" Angela's eyes flickered to Talon, who promptly stood and cleared the table. "We've detected a series of encrypted communications between the Drari bases. Your task is to decode these messages and determine their content. You'll be working with our communications specialist, Dr. Yara." Dr. Yara entered the mess hall as if on cue. She was a tall Seltor with an array of delicate, luminescent tattoos that traced intricate patterns down her arms. Her demeanor was calm but focused, her gaze sharp as she assessed Jackson. "Dr. Yara," Jackson greeted, extending a hand. "Jackson Reed. Ready to crack some codes?" Yara shook his hand with a polite smile. "Dr. Yara, I'll be assisting you in analyzing the Drari communications. Follow me to the data lab. The data lab was a sleek, high-tech room filled with holographic screens and complex algorithms. Yara began setting up the equipment while Jackson observed with interest. The Drari encrypt their messages with a multi-layered algorithm, Yara explained as she worked. It's challenging, but not impossible. We need to break through the layers to get to the core content. Jackson nodded, watching as Yara brought up a series of encrypted messages. How long do you think it'll take? Yara's eyes twinkled with determination. With your expertise in human tactics and my skills in alien technology, we should be able to make significant progress within a few hours. Jackson settled into a seat next to Yara, his fingers dancing over the controls as they worked together. The room was filled with the soft hum of technology and the occasional beep as their decryption efforts progressed. So, Dr. Yara, Jackson said, attempting to break the silence, what brought you into the world of communications? Seems like a far cry from a typical Seltor career path. Yara smiled, her focus not wavering from the screen. I have always been fascinated by the nuances of language and communication. The interplay between technology and linguistics offers endless possibilities. Jackson grinned. Sounds like you've got a passion for puzzles. I can relate. As the hours passed, Jackson and Yara made significant headway. The messages began to reveal fragments of information about Drari operations, including a large-scale operation planned in the Glarus system. It was clear that the Drari were preparing something major, but the specifics remained elusive. This is interesting, Yara said, her voice tinged with excitement. The encrypted messages mention something called the Celestial Beacon. It appears to be a focal point for their operations. Jackson raised an eyebrow. Celestial Beacon? That sounds like it could be important. Yara nodded. We need to find out more about this beacon. It might be the key to understanding their plans. Before they could delve further, the door to the data lab slid open, and Captain Angela entered, her expression serious. Jackson, Yara, we've received a priority alert. A Drari scout ship has been detected entering the Glarus system. It's heading towards a location of high strategic value. Jackson's heart raced. Do we have any information on its mission? Angela nodded. Our sensors indicate that it's on a reconnaissance mission. We need to intercept it before it can report back. Jackson, I'm assigning you to pilot the shuttle for this operation. Jackson's eyes sparkled with determination. I'm on it. When do we leave? Angela's gaze softened slightly. Immediately. Prepare for departure. The stealth shuttle was quickly prepped, and Jackson, Yara, and a small team of Seltor officers boarded. The ship slipped into the void, cloaking systems activated as they approached the Glarus system. Jackson, we need to approach the scout ship without being detected, Angela's voice came through the comm system. Once you're in range, we need to disable its communications and retrieve any data it might have. Jackson grinned, his hands poised over the controls. Understood. Time to see if I still have it. The shuttle maneuvered through the asteroid field, drawing closer to the Drari scout ship. Its sleek, menacing form was visible through the viewport, its sensors and weaponry active. Engaging stealth mode, Jackson said, guiding the shuttle into a concealed position. We're in range. Prepare to deploy the disruption field. Yara worked swiftly, deploying a device designed to scramble the scout ship's communications. As the device activated, the Drari vessel systems began to malfunction. Disruption field is online, Yara confirmed. We're clear to board. Jackson guided the shuttle alongside the Drari ship, carefully aligning the docking ports. A moment later, the team was boarding the scout ship, their cloaked suits blending seamlessly with the surroundings. The interior of the scout ship was a maze of metal corridors and dimly lit control rooms. Jackson led the way, his eyes scanning for any signs of activity. They quickly located the ship's data core, a secure chamber filled with encrypted files. Yara worked rapidly, accessing the core and downloading the data. This will give us valuable insights into the Drari's current objectives, she said. We're almost done. As they completed the download, an alarm blared throughout the ship. The Drari had detected the intrusion. We've been compromised, Yara exclaimed. Jackson's heart raced as he signaled the team to fall back. Time to go. Move. The team sprinted back to the shuttle, navigating the narrow corridors as the Drari crew closed in. Jackson powered up the shuttle, the engines roaring to life as they prepared for a quick escape. "Engage cloaking," Jackson commanded, guiding the shuttle out of the docking bay. The Drari scout ship fired a few desperate shots, but the shuttle's advanced cloaking systems rendered them invisible. As they slipped away into the asteroid field, Jackson let out a sigh of relief. "That was close. But we made it." Yara wiped sweat from her brow, her expression a mix of relief and triumph. "We've got the data. That's what matters." Back aboard the Stellar Tempest, Angela awaited their return, her expression one of stern approval. "Well done, Jackson. And you too, Dr. Yara." Jackson grinned, feeling a surge of pride. Just another day in the life of a human pilot. What's next on the agenda? Angela's gaze softened slightly. "We need to analyze the data and determine our next move. You've proven yourself invaluable, Jackson. And Dr. Yara, your expertise has been crucial." As Jackson and Yara prepared to delve into the data, Angela's words lingered in Jackson's mind. He had earned a place on the ship, not just as a pilot, but as a trusted member of the crew. And as he looked at Angela, he couldn't help but wonder what other challenges awaited them in the vast, uncharted reaches of space. The Stellar Tempest sailed onward, its crew united by their shared mission and the bonds they had forged. For Jackson Reed, every day brought new adventures and opportunities, and he was ready to face them head-on. With each challenge, he was discovering not just the depths of space, but the strength within himself to overcome them.